Rishus. I'd like to discuss today the challenges of building an ERUV in a city, and I'm just going to focus on one nekuda. As we know, an ERUV can only be made on a Carmelis, a Rishus Harabim. You can't make an ERUV in a Rishus Harabim. So we have to define what is a Rishus Harabim. The personal interest at the moment is I'm in the middle of building an ERUV in Golders Green, which is the neighborhood of London that I live in. For those of you that are uninitiated, London is a big city. London has more people than New York City. New York City has 7.7 million people, and London has 8.8 million people. But another point is that London is 3.5 times the size of New York City. New York City is extremely concentrated, and there are a lot of skyscrapers. So although London has more people than New York, they are spread over a much greater distance. Now, imagine first you're living in a village and you want to make ERUV. Seemingly there should be no impediment provided you make it properly, because it's definitely a Carmelis. But the truth is, there's a machlekes rishonim what constitutes a Rishus Harabim. Some rishonim say any street which is tes zayin amos wide, 16 amos wide, is a Rishus Harabim. Some rishonim say it has to be a street that has 600,000 people. Now, villages do not have 600,000 people in the whole village, but many of them in postmodern towns have streets that are 16 amos wide. So the question is, l'chayra, this is a machlekes rishonim. This is a machlekes rishonim in a deraisa. If you have a street which is tezayin amma, and take a city, in a small city, according to many rishonim, there's an issa deraisa to carry there. So how could you make an ERUV in a small city, even in a town, when it's a suffix deraisa? So the answer to that question is, and throughout the world are ERUV in small cities, is that the minig of Ashkenazim is to follow the shita of Bahag and Rashi, that Rishus Harabim is 600,000 people. The first person who notes this is the Chuvas Beis Ephraim, where he says minig Ashkenaz is like this. And based on that, if you'll learn through Shabbos or Eruvin, you'll see so many times it says v'achshav ein lanu Rishus Harabim. Now, if you meant tezayin amos wide, then you wouldn't say that. So the very fact that it says all over throughout Hilchos Shabbos and Hilchos Eruvin v'achshav she'ein lanu Rishus Harabim, even though it's a machlekes rishonim, means that the minig is like those rishonim. So those who say the minig is like that, the halach is like that, but a Yarei Shemayim should be machmer. Beis Meir, the Chayei Adam, and the Shulchan Aruch Harav. Of those who give a different reason. The machlekes rishonim is without a mechitza. What happens if you put a tzuras HaPesach on a Rishus Harabim? So we know, machlekes in Eruvin, do you say Asi Rabim umevatel mechitzta? You should know that most achronim hold that we paskin loy Asu Rabim umevatel mechitzta midiraisa. This that we say Asi Rabim umevatel mechitzta, that is a derabanan dekedin. And therefore, even if you would have a Rishus Harabim of tezayin amma, but the tzuras HaPesach would at the very least lower it to a D'Rabbanan. Others would say that it's not enough to have a Tzuras HaPesach for the Din Mechitza, Benegei Asirab Mevat Mechitza. You'd need an Oimid Meruba Ala Parutz together with Mechitza, a Tzuras HaPesach, by all the Pirtzes. But the Chazon Ish notes that the way every city is built today, every modern city today is built in a way that it's Oimid Meruba Ala Parutz. There are many more houses than there are open space, and therefore every city is an Oimid Meruba. And an Oimid Meruba together with a Tzuras HaPesach, there the Asi Rabbi Mevatel Mechitzta is not, either we hold Lo Asi Rabbi Mevatel Mechitzta in such a case, or the Asi Rabbi Mevatel Mechitzta is only a D'Rabbanan, and Memela in the D'Rabbanan we're Saimach on Shishim Ribui.
What about, like, if you take the ends of the streets? The ends of the streets are completely open, so there's no Emin Ruba. Being two sides of the street, you have Emin Ruba, but on the ends, two ends of the street, there's no Emin Ruba.
No, again, eventually you're going to have some ending.
You have it set up.
Yeah, but the Chazon Ish notes it's not really likely. The next is that the Chazon Ish writes that every modern city today is an Emin Beruba. Next, the Poskim hold that a Rishus Rabbim has to be mefulish mishar l'shar. The Rishus Rabbim has to be from one end of the town to the other end of the town. Most towns today do not have that. The road curves. They are, streets turn, and therefore, albeit it conforms to the criterion of Rishus Rabbim, it's not a Rishus Rabbim. The fourth reason is the Eshel Avram, who says that a Rishus Rabbim, as we know, can't have a roof. If there's any place along the street that has a roof, like a train track runs on top of it, it's Eisur Rishus Rabbim Midaraisa. So, to review, how could I make a ERUV in a small town? There's still the Shita of Tezayin Amma, which is a Rishus Rabbim Deraisa. The answers are: 1, the minig is to be Saimach on the Shita of Shishim Ribui. 2, that these towns all have Tzuras HaPesachs, or Oimid Meruba plus a Tzuras HaPesach, and therefore, in such a case, certainly at the Deraisa level, it's Le'asi Rabbi Mevatel Mechitzta. 3, you don't have roads that go from one end of the town to the other end of the town, and 4, there are coverings.
This mayor and the Shulchan Aruch are sitting on top of the second reason?
No, they're only going in the first reason. In other words, even if you'll say the Beis Meir and the Chayim Adam say you should be machmer for Tezayin Amma, but these things would be mat to Tezayin Amma also. Now let's go to a big city. Throughout the world, in big cities, there are ERUV made by great people. This is not a new phenomenon. It was pre-war. Also, Warsaw had an ERUV pre-war. Lodz had an ERUV pre-war. Paris, many big cities, Vienna, all had pre-war ERUV. These are big cities that had many more than 600,000 people. These are cities that had millions of people in it. So how did they go about it? So the answer is very simply that 600,000, but 600,000 where? And the pashtus of the Lashon of Shulchan Aruch is that we look at each street. Does this street have 600,000 people going through this street every day? And this is the opinion of the Marsham, Chelik Gimel Siman Kuf Pei Ches, Minchas Elazar, Chelik Gimel Siman Dalet, Divrei Malkil, Chelik Dalet Siman Gimel. And, in fact, the Mishnah Berurah learns the Mechaber like that also. He brings others that disagree, but the Mechaber, the pashtus in the Mechaber is that you need 600,000 on an individual street, and that is the opinion of the Igros Moshe there, in numerous places. The Aruch HaShulchan also says this, that you need 600,000 on the street, but he says you don't measure it by a day, you measure it by a few days. But you still need 600,000 individual, unique users. Almost no streets in the world have, almost no cities in the world, no matter how big the city is, do they have streets which 600,000 people actually go on this street every day. There are some, but there are very, very few.
It's within the entire city on that one stretch of road. You have 95 that goes from Maine till Miami.
Okay, so the question on that would be, is it all one road, or no, every time it turns, certainly every time it turns at a right angle, it's a new road, as I state in Chazanish. So that is the basis for making ERUV in a large city.
Was ever in history, it was just, come on, never such a thing as it was just around the
Well, that was ancient medieval times.
This is an old question. It's a very good question. And more so, they asked it to blow shofar and lulav, and lulav on the first day Yom Tov, Zer Shem Yavirenu. According to this, they stopped the whole world from blowing shofar. Why? Shem Yavirenu, and this Kemat no Rishus Rabbams, maybe Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. It's a good question. It's an old question. But nevertheless, any Achreinim that are learning the Shulchan Aruch say that's what the Shulchan Aruch meant. So what is the objection to it? Is as follows. That many Achreinim that learn, although the pashtus of the Shulchan Aruch is not mashma like that I don't need 600,000 to go on this road. I need that this road services 600,000 people. So even if the person lives in a road off that road, you might have a problem. Because this road is made to service 600,000 people. And in fact, the Biur Halacha says that's what the Ritva and the Riaz and the Ramban, not Ramban, Ritva and the Riaz say beferish, that it's not I need Shishim Ribui on this street, but I need this street is made to service 600,000 people. Marshal, the Ramban says a Sratya doesn't need Shishim Ribui because it belongs to the whole world. It's made to serve the whole world. It's not made just to serve this neighborhood. It's made to serve the whole world. So you see this concept. And the Achreinim who make this note is the Beis Ephraim, Achiezer and Chelik Dalet Simen Ches, Tferes Yisrael and the Psicha to Meseches Shabbos, Divrei Malkil Chelik Gimel Shmotel Simen Yud Ches. So therefore, that is the nidden on a big city ERUV, not a massive city, but a big city ERUV, is largely you don't have any streets that have 600,000 people in it. But
on North Miami Beach, where everybody services the whole America, people are coming here to visit and to use.
You can only count the residents of the city. So again, I don't know anything about North Miami Beach Road, but I'm saying that certainly 600,000 people don't go down that road every day. Now the question is it made to serve 600,000 people? The 600,000 people who live off of it. That is the Shaila, which, like I say, the pashtus of the Shulchan Aruch will tell you that it's mutter. The Biur Halacha and others bring many Rishonim who say that it's not so. Now, let's go to London. London, about 25 years ago, Dayan Zatzal made an ERUV over there. Caused a great controversy. Probably the biggest or the most famous opponent of it was Penach Padva, the Malmach Habachesha Ve'efait, and the Nakuda was one Nakuda, basically this Nakuda itself. There is a street that goes around all of London called the North Circular. It's a circle that goes around all of London. Now, the truth is, there isn't any segment of the North Circular that has ever more than 130,000 people in a day. That's a fact. That's what the Department of Traffic says. But it's made to serve all of London because it mamish circles London, and it cuts through a Jewish neighborhood. When you go from Golders Green to Hendon, you are crossing the North Circular. Can you make an ERUV which crosses the North Circular? That was a very, very big battle, caused a lot of mental anguish, hardship, breakups in families. Don't know why. It's a plain machlekes, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. And people can choose which row they want to follow, but that's the nature of things. Anyway, this was a dispute over 20 odd years ago, and everyone made up their minds. I moved to London this January, will be 4 years ago, and I see what I see as a problem. There are many people who don't use this London ERUV for whatever reason. Halachic reasons, family reasons, social reasons. I can't, don't go around psychoanalyzing everyone. But the reality is they have a need for it. Women are stuck at home on Shabbos. The children, Baruch Hashem, today people have large families. Many of them are in small places. You have in the summer you have a very long Shabbos day. Shabbos can be out in London 10:30, 10:40. When I was in Gateshead, it was 11:25. Actually, when I came to Gateshead, it was 11:13. Then I added Al Pi Cheshbon, it should end 11:25. So all of you told me they're scared to take a new Rav because who knows what he's going to add to Shabbos, and it's never going to end. Al Kapanim, it's a great hardship. Besides the hardship, Rav Moshe Feinstein said that the reason we lost a generation in America because people used to krecht and say, "Se schwer zu sein a Yid." These were people who were Moshe Nefesh for Shabbos. But nevertheless, it was difficult. And their children saw it's hard to keep Shabbos. My personal fear is that we have many Baalei or Baalei Siras Shemayim that are walking around giving off the vibes of Sheretz Zayin. And therefore, I feel a need to address it. But can't redo what was done because you have to be mechadish something. Not just you have to be mechadish something, for it to possibly be useful. I'm not making ERUV to show I know who is ERUV, I'm trying to make an ERUV to help people. Now there is one already. So it has to be fundamentally different. It has to be fundamentally different than any ERUV that was ever proposed. So I want to tell you the four thoughts came up with. Number one, going to make an ERUV only around Golders Green, which means the North Circular, the A1, Finchley Road, any street that anyone has a chash is a big street which serves 600,000 people will not be included in this ERUV. It's just the oval of Golders Green. Therefore, even if we'll go be machmer like the Ritva, it's not meshamish 600,000 people. The amount of people living in Golders Green, I don't know, about 125,000 people. The biggest road is Golders Green Road, which cuts up the middle, and therefore it itself probably has 30,000 people a day go on it, but it's mishamish 125,000 people. So therefore, that's step number one. Just take out all the big roads. You'll fadin that you don't have the ritva, which is what the Mishnah the Bir Halacha says you should be chayshish for, and that alone should be enough. Now, I'll acknowledge that there are those who say that any city that has 600,000 people, every individual road on it, even the smallest street, is a Rishus Rabbim. If you're going to, some want to say this pshat in Rashi, in Masechtas Shabbos. If you're going to learn like that, then this svara will not be sufficient. And in fact, the one who held like that halacha l'maisa was Rav Elyashiv. But l'chayra, for this opinion, I don't have a solution. I'll show you a few solutions soon. But the solution of just enclosing a small area will not solve this. However, this opinion is against the minig ha'olam of the whole world, because every place in the world there are cities that have over 600,000 people, and eruvin were made in small parts of that city. And in fact, Rav Moshe Feinstein notes the same thing, and Shevet HaLevi notes the same thing, that historically there were always eruvin in the Jewish neighborhood of large cities, and many of these cities had over 600,000 people.
But that's about any street in the city or any street that connects?
Any street in the whole city. Even the Rechav Hanan, where he lived, he held as a Rishus Rabbim. Now, let's go to Rav Moshe Feinstein's opinion. Rav Moshe says in numerous places that he rejects the svara that any street in a city of 600,000 people is a Rishus Rabbim. But he does write in Chelik Aleph, Siman Kuf Lamed Tes, Chelik Dalet, Siman Pei Zayin, Pei Ches, Chelik Hey, Siman Chaf Ches, that if a city has 3 million people within Yud Beis Mil on Yud Beis Mil, then it's called a Rishus Rabbim. It's hard to understand what his cheshbon is, but basically he feels that 20% of people are outside at any time. So if you have 3 million people living in houses, albeit they're not going on the streets, but if 3 million people are in houses within a certain area, then that area is considered a Rishus Rabbim by virtue of 600,000 people. And that, in fact, if you'll read through his tshuvas on eruvin in Brooklyn and in Manhattan, that was his objection. It wasn't that he was paskening like the Ritva, that it's mishamish 600,000 people. He acknowledged that the Shulchan Aruch says not like the Ritva, but he was saying that this is called having 600,000 people. Nevertheless, now, this happens not to apply in London, as I pointed out, that albeit London has more people than New York, but it's 3.5 times the size of New York. And there are no areas that are densely populated, and therefore you never have any 3 million people within Yud Beis Mil on Yud Beis Mil.
How do you get that?
A mil is 2,000 amas, so do 2,000 amas times 12 is 24,000 amas. 24,000 amas by 24,000 amas. How much is an amma? Machlekes Chazon Ish and thing, whatever. Make it even a half, 1.5. So you'll have 36,000 feet. It'll be 7 miles by 7 miles. But that happens not to exist in London. Furthermore, Rav Moshe Feinstein himself gave the okay to make a ERUV in Kew Gardens Hills, which is part of New York. and in Detroit, in Southfield, Michigan, which is the Jewish section in Detroit, albeit all these cities have a large amount of people. And he says himself in Chelik Dalet Siman Pei Vav, Hashmata on page Tuf Chavches, Chelik Hey Siman Chavtes, Chelik Hey Siman Chavches, that a small area of a large city is permissible. So therefore, number one, which we're trying to accomplish, is narrow the area to the Jewish neighborhood of a large city, which doesn't encompass any roads. Not only doesn't encompass any roads that have 600,000 people, it doesn't encompass even any road which is mishamish 600,000 people. Next, the Aruch HaShulchan writes that Reshus HaRabim has to be the Rechov HaIkri Shel HaEir, the main thoroughfare of the city. And therefore, whether that applies in London, I don't know. But what is the main thoroughfare? Is it the A1, which starts in London, goes to Scotland? Or is it the North Circular, which encircles London itself? It would be an interesting shaila what the Aruch HaShulchan would say if he would have showed up in London.
What's conveyed the city? Because the name of Golden Green's itself is its own city.
Well, Golders Green is own city, then I have no problem at all, because there are only 130,000 people living in Golders Green. What?
By the main street going through.
The main street going through it, if it's only 130,000 people live in it, so then the main street going through it cannot be a problem. So that's Mahalach number. These are two Mahalchim. Get to cut out any big street. Now, let's say someone will say, I can say the two biggest streets in Golders Green are called Golders Green Road and Finchley and Bridge Lane. Why are they big streets? Every street here in Miami is bigger than it, because they go from one end is at the North Circular and the other one is on Finchley Road. So im timtzalaimer that these two roads have a din of Reshus HaRabim, so do you say that the road that goes at each end, that the road which connects these two, also get a din of Reshus HaRabim, outs Tafel? That would be the next counter argument. So to address that, what we proposed and got planning permission for this is two things. One, at each of these ends of Golders Green Road and Bridge Lane, putting up dalsis haru'uyas linol. We know that even if something is Reshus HaRabim, if it has a delis, it's mutter. There's a machlokes rishonim. Does the door have to be closed every night, or it just has to be able to be closed? In Shulchan Aruch it says it has to be closed every night. V'yesh oimrim, it's enough to be roi to be closed. The Rambam is the yesh oimrim. The Shulchan Aruch Harav says that the Iker is like this yesh oimrim. So therefore, what we did was put glosses at each end of Golders Green Road and each end of Bridge Lane, again with planning permission. What happens if you do something without planning permission? It's illegal, but you put it up a door. That's machlekes. If Yosef Engel says it's not valid, the Marsham and Avnei Nezer says it is valid. But what? It says even that's what they're arguing about. But bottom line is, again, we're English, we don't do such things. We got planning permission and permission from the traffic department to close them. You got to get two different permissions, and you're putting doors at each end. They're not going to close. What?
Can you explain what it means, doors?
Yeah, I'll get to that last. How could I put a door in the middle of London? Okay, but going with dlosses haruyas linal. So Mamela, what we're adding here is that even if someone im nafshecha loymar that these roads are Rishus Harabim, you should know, albeit no 600,000 people go it, and albeit it's not meshamish 600,000, but maybe it touches at each end such roads, and therefore it will get a din of a tuffle or a movim of foolish the two Rishus Harabim. We shall put doors at each end.
Does it make like the doors just floating in the middle of nowhere? It's connected to walls.
Tell you how to do it. Next.
The original ERUV that was there from 25 years ago, they weren't able to put up losses?
No, first of all, it's way too big. It encompasses an area. I think here we're encompassing a small area, and all you'd need for this is 4 losses. 4 losses, you can pull it off. Next, we got permission to build up, to put fences, not to cut the street, but remember, houses in London are all attached to each other. So now, they're all attached to each other, and then you cross a street, and you put up a wall over on the other side of the street. So this street, you'll have Oimid Meruba ala Paretz, even in this street itself. Even this opening, albeit it's more than 10 amas, but it's a 30-meter street is a pirza in an Oimid Meruba of 70. This again needed planning permission also. So we're going to build walls on each side of the 2 main streets, which will then make.
You have explained a little bit. I did.
Yeah, the very simple concept. Yeah, imagine if the street is the pirza, right? Now let's say. Now the halacha is, if you have an area which is Oimid Meruba ala Paretz, and there's a pirza of less than 10 amas, it's totally mutter, it's a Pesach. What happens if it's more than 10 amas? It's a pirza. This pirza is a deraisa or derabanan. Right. So, but there are many shittas who hold that it's only a derabanan. So we simply got permission to put up walls along the streets, so that the pirza should be less than the walls. Very simply put. And therefore, what we've done, step 1 is, again, take out all big streets. Number 2, at the 2 small streets that touch on big streets, put doors on each end. Furthermore, put fences on each end, so it should be Oimid Meruba ala Paretz. And therefore, that was basically the original proposal. This proposal passed planning permission and traffic permission. Once got into that mode of creating places, my main thought process is to create as many shveikas at the deraisa level that to remember, in a Carmelis you can put up an area, you can put up a Tzuras Pesach, and there's going to be a Tzuras Pesach all around. So the only way you could puzzle it is by saying that you should know that this is Rishus Harabim. So the idea was to throw as many shittas at it that if someone wants to claim it's Rishus Harabim, they'd have sveka at the deraisa level, and at the derabanan level you have mechitzas. So this was the theory behind everything that I'm doing. Agav, this theory would even address Rav Elyashiv's objection that any city of 600,000, every street is a Rishus Harabim, because even on a Rishus Harabim itself, Glossus Haruyas Linol would work at a deraisa level, and Oimid Meruba ala Paretz would work. Then, because it had a blitz recently. According to many Rishonim, what is a Rishus HaYachid? something which has mechitzas on 3 sides. You don't need mechitzas on 4 sides to be Rosh Hashanah. You only need on 3 sides. According to the Rambam, glosses haruyas linol serve as a mechitza because it's matter even Rosh Hashanah. So what would be, instead of putting up 4 doors, I'd put up 19 doors, and these 19 doors would close off 3 sides in the ruyas linol. And then, according to the Rambam, that ruyas linol is called a mechitza, you should know I just turned the whole place into a Rosh Hashanah. That was the latest blitz. But all of a sudden you need not permission to put up 4 doors, but to put up 19 doors.
Where are the 19 doors going? Different points around.
Every point at the end where Golders Green ends, and it ends to a big road even on one side. I did it on 2 sides. And on one side we'll put up a Delis Haroili, no. Once we'll do that, so according to the Rambam, and remember the Balatanya says the Iker is like the Rambam, then we just added another thing, we just plain turned the whole place into Rosh Hashanah. It has an additional milah, because many people came out to me, you're going to make an Erev, will it be good for Sfardim or only for Ashkenazim? Because we know that the Rambam holds that Etzuras HaPesach has to be less than 10 amas. Etzuras HaPesach only work on for things that are less than, or you need a new alechi every 10 amas. Now it's not physically possible to do such a thing. So all Erevin really do not work for Sardim. However, there are 2 mahalchim to make it kosher for Sardim. One is used lasses hirayos linol, because the very Rambam who said that you need lechis every 10 amas says that a delis haroy linol is also good.
The Rambam holds it on 3 sides or even on the 4th side. The Jewish Pesach can be more than 10.
If you ever,
U'may nafkamina.
No, because then you would have deemed that you have 3 real walls. Then it would be even according to the Rambam, even for this.
Exactly.
That's what we're trying to do. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. That's one accomplishment. Number 2, even according to the Rambam, I think if it's an Oimid Merubal Aparatz, he also agrees at the Deraisa level, you don't need a lechi every 10 amas. So what I want to do is include all the Sfardim in it. Now, I don't know in Svardik Psak, and this I tell them you have to ask a Svardik Rav, what happens if the Mechaber says you need a delis that closes every night, v'yesh oimrim, that it's enough royal and all. But that yesh oimrim is the Rambam. If you're Svardik, do you paskin like the Mechaber or do you paskin like the Rambam? Like I know the fact that the Balatanya says v'chein Iker on the Rambam is not going to help you if you're Svardik. It helps you if you're Chassidish, but it's not going to help you if you're Svardik. But how do they paskin? Or do you go Memanushach? The whole author of saying you need a lechi every 10 amas is the Rambam. Well, the Rambam's happy with this erev. Or no? Do you look at each question independently? That I said that I have to leave for Svardik Pesach. So basically, the idea now this I just applied for planning permission. We're going to know on January 8th if it is approved. Kamat, every shul in Golders Green have sent out a text to their, or email to their membership that everyone should go online and vote for it. Even shuls that of Kehillas that traditionally oppose the Erev also sent out to their members to do it, because this is something that no one has ever done, and therefore you cannot compare it to anything that ever existed, or every machlokes that ever existed in the world. No one ever had an argument about an Erev which would have Dlasas Haruis Linol 3 times around the city, only encompasses small streets, is an Ayman Meruba al Paratz, and any street which is mafulish to a big street also has a Delas Harai Linol. every Rav is entitled to their opinion afterwards, but it's not something that you launch a campaign against. And even, like I say, those who are probably the most against it have been maskim that at most they might advise their kehillah, yes, to use it or not to use it, whatever, but it's not something to argue about. And the truth is, deep down, everyone wants to avoid the splash they had 20 years ago. Stronger personalities then, whatever. It's a different thing. Now, all we have to define is what is a delis haroy lenol. Now, a real delis haroy lenol, you put a door, put a hinge, and put a door, like they have, let's say, in Matastarf, or at the beginning of, Unstarf, Matastarf, and either you close it a whole Shabbos, that would be good l'chaladeis, or you leave it open. You can't really go build doors. You can't really go around building doors in London, and you're not going to get planning permission to go do such a thing. So the question is as follows. In Amsterdam, they also had the similar idea. And what they did is they put a box. Within it is a string on a spring. And you pull out 3 strings, which constitute lavud, and hook it up on a hook which is put on the other side of the street. And they say we have glosses haruyas lino.
Can you explain the thing again?
And this is what they did in Amsterdam. They put a post on this side of the street, which has a spring, which has a rope in it, and you can pull out the rope, hook it up on a hook which is on the other side of the street. You do 3 of them, it should be lavud, like it would be good enough for a sukkah. And I have glosses haruyas no. What?
Like by security in the airport, you just put 3 of them.
Right.
Glosses, it's a wool.
Why is that?
Oh. So the question is that called a delis? Or no? When it's closed, it's a mechitza. But the svara and delis haroy linol is that even when it's open, it's a delis. Even when it's open, it's a delis, because the whole vart is that although normally more than 10 amas is not a pesach, but it's a pirza. But if I have a delis, so then by definition it's a pesach. But this, when it's closed, it's not a pesach. And in truth, Navnei Neza, he says this objection, and Rav Elyashiv also writes that. So, but what happens if you would not have strings on springs, but you'd have an accordion door, a delis mitkapelet, as they call it in Hebrew, which like they have mamash in the back there. Mamash, you'd have that door over there, and it would be open. Does that have a shem delis even when it's open? Chayra, yes. And it's a Chuvas Miram Shik, Simen Kuf Ayin Dalet, Avnei Neza, Simen Reish Mem Beis, and Shevet Alevi, Chelik Dalet, Simen Mem Aleph. So that's exactly what we did. We got permission to put boxes on each side of the road, green boxes. These boxes have in it a folding door, and you can pull out the folding door from each side and hook them up together. And therefore you have a delis haroy linol that doesn't take up much space, and when it's closed,
practically doesn't. It's like these doors have tracks that hold them. How is it going to be running long?
You want to know why doesn't it blow down in the wind?
Yeah.
The answer is we put wheels. We had this problem. We put wheels on the bottom of it and coasters with locks on it. So you can open it up, lock it, and it will stand. We've tried it. So this is what we call a delis haroy linol. Again, I hope the planning permission will go through, and then we'll have it on all 3 sides of the whole neighborhood. If it doesn't go through, at least you'll have it at each end of the roads that touch the big roads.
Do you have to close it?
Now, what is the shear roy linol? How often do you have to close it, to be a delis haroy lenol. The truth is, you learn Rambam, it doesn't say it's roy lenol. You could close it. The only one who says a share, the Avnei Nezer and some Reish Samaches and some Reish he says you have to open it occasionally. He says what's called because otherwise it's not roy lenol. What is occasionally? He says, in one place he says, once a month. In a different place he says, as long as you open it sometimes. That's why we needed the traffic department. To put up a structure in a city, you need zoning permission. You don't need traffic department. To close a road, even without doors, you want to block up a road for a simcha or whatever, you need permission from the traffic department. So we had to then go to the traffic department and say, the zoning department gave us permission to put up doors. Now we need permission from you to close it. How often do you want to close it? I said as much as religious law requires us to. Okay, freedom of religion. How long do you have to close it for? That there is no share, it just has to be closed. Even according to Avnei Nezer, you have to close it once a month. So he said, can you close it at 3 a.m. for 5 minutes? I said, of course we can close it at 3 a.m. for 5 minutes. So you think we're going to run it across the street while people are in the middle of driving by? Of course not. They said, okay, gesundheit, if that's what you need, that's what you need. So basically, to summarize what we said, we have, how do you make an ERUV of any town if there are the shittas that every street of Tezayin Amis is a Rishus Rabbim Deraisa? The answer is, the main answer is that the minig is to follow the shittas of 600,000, but we added in that there are some other opinions to be mitzaref. One, that there's an Oymid Meruba in every modern city that's based on a Chazanish. Number two, that only Rishus Rabbim is only when one street goes from one end of the town to the other end of the town. And number three was that there are roofs or things that cover Rishus Rabbim, which breaks them into two. Then we go to a city that has 600,000 people. So the fundamental shaila is, do you need 600,000 on each street, or do you need 600 that this street services 600,000 people? That is clearly a machlekes, where the Mechaber says the former, the Biur Halacha says the latter, and different poskim argue about it. What I am proposing is, or the ERUV I'm in the middle of making, will address even the Ritva in 4 different ways. One, it will not cross any street which even serves 600,000 people. That's its main accomplishment. Number 2, at each end of the 2 main streets, will make a delis haroy linol with permission to put it up and permission to close it. And therefore, even were it a Rishus Rabbim, it would be mutter according to the Rambam. Number 3, again, with zoning permission, we put up walls on each side of the main 2 streets, which are mafulish, the bigger streets, and therefore you have an Oymid Meruba al Aparatz together with the Tzuras HaPesach, which is certainly mutter midaraisa. And then, like I say, what we're in the middle of doing, which hopefully Be'ezus Hashem will get approval, is to put Losses Harois Linol around 3 sides of the outskirts of the neighborhood, and then it will pashat be the whole neighborhood will turn into a Rishus HaYachid, according to Rambam and according to all of them. That's a hatzah. Now, tell me what you think. Well, work it out.
That
לא, מה זה מחובת של הצבעה? זה
Only
of course, it has to do with streets.